Fans of the Horus Heresy, Warhammer 40,000 and Titan architecture, thank you very much for joining me for what is probably the first episode in a long journey. This is going to be my journey of building, owning, modelling the largest kit ever made by Games Workshop for commercial purposes, and in particular Forge World, and that is a Mars Pattern Warlord Battle Titan. And here we have it set out in front of us. So as you can see, as you can probably gather straight away from the way I've set this out today, this kit is part built. So before I started channel Leakycheese, I'd done a lot of work building the Titan and probably got it to a state where it's actually, body-wise, it's about 90% complete. And then I've done some work on the arm weapons. So we're kind of jumping into this midway through. So I can't do this review in the way I would normally approach this, whereby I unbox a kit, I build it, and then review afterwards and do a series of videos on the way. We're going to jump in part way on that journey. Yeah, so that's the way it's going to work, and that's just the reality of the situation. So it's going to be an interesting journey, this. And I'm also conscious that by starting to do a series of videos about what is the biggest modelling project I've probably undertaken possibly ever. I'm conscious that, a bit like in quantum physics, the moment you measure something, you change it. So the moment I start filming the process of this Titan being built, I'm irrevocably changing how this Titan is going to turn out and when it will be finished. So it's quite an interesting perspective personally from me to actually do this. I'm hoping it's going to work. It's a big deal because, you know, the Warlord Titan is a big in every respect. The size of a model, the work required, and of course the cost. I'm also, one of the things I do really want to share with all you guys and girls is the actual experience of having a Warlord and building it, and just the whole creative process behind it, because let's be honest, this thing is expensive. It is extremely expensive, and I consider myself extremely fortunate to have got into a position in life where I could afford to buy this. But I appreciate that a lot of people aren't in that position, and for many people they may never reach a position where they can do that. So I'm hoping I might be able to take advantage of the opportunity I've had here and give you all something back by being able to share the process of completing the build and, you know, just showing you what the kit's like. But that's the principle. That's what my MO, that's my modus operandi for this series. This first video, though, is going to talk about kind of two topics which aren't really necessarily related to the Warlord Titan that much. Well, of course they're related, but they're nothing to do with the model. And I'm going to talk about two things. Firstly, and this is an interesting question, is why and for what reason? Why buy this model? It's extremely expensive, and you could argue it's a bit of a white elephant as well. So that's the first question I want to address. The second question I'm going to talk about is the price. A lot of people will talk about the cost of the Warlord Titan, which is extremely high. At the time of making this video, I think it is retailing for £1,240 British sterling. That's a lot of money. But I'm going to suggest that it is not expensive for what it is. And that's perhaps a little controversial, but I'm going to defend that viewpoint. I'll also just finish off by giving you a brief overview of what this kit is, you know, and how I've chosen to configure this, because if you were to approach this, I just thought I'd share my thoughts as to how I went about buying the bits for it and what my thinking was behind that. Before I address those questions, let's just do a little bit of history as to when I bought this. So I ordered this at the original release date, which, if I recall correctly, and I'm casting my mind back now, I seem to think it was around May 2015. Yeah, so it's just over 2 years ago. The reason I did this was two reasons why I bought it then. Firstly, because I had an opportunity money-wise to buy it. And secondly, and this is my general principle, and it was even more important to me here with buying Forge World models, is to always buy them at point of release if you can. You know, just to avoid buying models which have been made by molds which have got more age to them. As you're probably aware, when you buy the large Forge World models, so things like Thunderhawks, Warhounds, that size and upwards, you get a certificate from Forge World, which is a nice little thing, and it's got a serial number, or the kit number, shall we call it. And just to show you, so this is what we get. The Fabricator General has decreed that your army may deploy the might of a Warlord Titan. Tremble, foes of mankind, for the might of the Omnissiah is upon you. Thought for the day. Victory needs no explanation, defeat allows none. And as you see, chassis number 71. So this was the 71st kit that Forge World sold. It was one of the first. I was in no real rush to build it straight away, and things happened, which is partly related to how Forge World released the parts that I wanted, which meant I didn't do it straight away. So let me start to address the questions I posed myself at the start of this video. So this question was, why a Warlord Titan? There's two main reasons for this. The first reason for this is definitely nostalgia and an event that happened a long time ago. So I got into 40k when I was sort of like, I don't know, 12, 13, and I bought and played all the original games. So the Warhammer 40,000 game, but then around that time there was also things like Space Hulk, and then the epic games, so Adeptus Titanicus and then Space Marine. And I played all those a lot with mates, and with the release of Adeptus Titanicus I had the idea of actually building a tabletop scale Titan, and I built a Reaver Titan, and I made it out of card and straws and all sorts, painted it. It actually looked, for the time it wasn't bad. I don't have it anymore. I think it went in a skip a long time ago, unfortunately. Very early on, I had the idea to create a Titan, and we made rules for it and we played with it. Right at that early stage, I had this idea that you could create and build a Titan to play Warhammer 40,000 scale games. I even part built a full-size Warlord Titan. I got distracted by other projects and I never finished that. There'd been an idea in my head about having Warhammer 40,000 scale Titans for a long time. As you'll know from my channel Avatar, I've got the Forge World Mars Pattern Warhound Titan, and that was actually the model that got me back into 40k, believe it or not. I'd not done any 40k for quite a while, and then I bought that as a project to do a tournament at Warhammer World, and then the Horus Heresy came in, and then I really started getting back into it. Through that process of building a Titan already, and I found that a lot of fun. I really enjoyed building my Warhound Titan. It was a great project. I never got the Reaver because, for me, Forge World's rendition of the Reaver it never felt faithful enough to their original model, the original epic model, which is the model that I'd owned, the metal model, and then created the cardboard version of, believe it or not. And there was something about Forge World one which didn't feel quite right, so I never bought it. So when the Warlord got announced, I was excited, and then when I actually saw how it had been conceptualized and visualized, and in a very impressive way, I loved the design of it, and there was something about the design that rang true to the original Titan models in terms of its style and how it was presented. I liked the look of it from day one. I seem to remember at the time there was a couple of months of rumours going around that the Warlord was coming along, so I had some time to marshal financial resources to acquire it. Part of what is in my Warlord is a mixture of just money I saved, sort of like, my monthly Leakycheese spending money, and then some money from some eBay selling that I did. So there's almost like financial parts of some old collections in this model I'd sold off. I think that's why it was that nostalgia trip back to the early days of 40k and my own early experiments with making a Titan, which were very early, and this was back in 88, 89, probably 89, but very early experiments with having Titans at Warhammer 40,000 scale. And then there was the opportunity as well. And then there was the fact I loved the way the design had been conceptualized, the enjoyment I'd had from making the Warhound, and then I guess, of course, just it coming along at the right time financially. So that's why I chose to buy it. Yeah, and let's talk about the cost briefly. As I say, the cost of this is £1,240 at the time of making this video, which is June 2017. That is a cost for the entire kit. That is a heck of a lot of money by anyone's standards, particularly for something that is a luxury item. It doesn't have any value outside of the enjoyment you get out of making it, and then something that you have in a collection for the future. A lot of people said, oh gosh, Forge World, the destroyer of wallets and all this sort of stuff. Well, yeah, it's expensive, but it's not expensive for what it is. I don't honestly think, you have to look at this in the context of the whole Forge World range. This isn't something that Forge World are making for the benefit of everybody. This is not a core market product. This is I would look at it as being the realization of a bit of an internal creative dream to what they do as a business, to realize such a large model. And, clearly this is being aimed at a very narrow purchasing group who would be interested in this. And it is, it's not the first time they've done an enormous model of this size. There was a Town Manta. You can't really look at it in the context of the normal cost of Forge World products, because it is a niche product, and they've done their market research because they've sold a lot of these. They've sold several hundred now, I know. And So I'm guessing I'm presuming it's been a profitable model for Forge World. It's also, I do wonder if it's a bit like, if we look in the world of supercars or even hypercars, look at the Bugatti Veyron that Volkswagen Group made a number of years back. An insanely technologically advanced and capable vehicle. However, they did it because they could. They didn't necessarily sell it. Well, they don't sell them at cost with profit on, because the R&D costs were so enormous. They subsidise the retail price of Veyrons to try and get them into the market, but it doesn't matter that they sell only a handful. It's the very fact they've made it and the symbolic value of that product to their brand. And I say exactly the same is true of the Warlord. Now, I don't believe that Forge World subsidise the cost of these things, because they don't have the financial muscle to do it. But I think from a symbolism and a brand identity viewpoint, exactly the same principle applies. This is a flagship model, signature model. So I mean, it costs what it costs. What's the old saying? Diamonds have no value apart from that which is attached to them. And I think that is true here. So do I think this is expensive? No. I think I think the cost that you pay will be scaled in exactly the same way as other Forge World models. They will have the same profit margin on this as they do on every other kit. Simple as that. Regardless of where you are in the world, you're never going to get charged postage on this big beastie either. As you know from my videos, and new subscribers may not have seen these, but I've done a lot of work investigating quality in Forge World models. I'm not going to address the question of quality now, because that's something to look at when I get into the detail of looking at the individual kits. But let's just say there is a way to deal with any quality issues with this model, and that's just to deal with it in exactly the same way as any other fault. So any arguments around, quality of Forge World, I don't buy, because if you get something that's miscast, you take it up with Forge World, you challenge them, you keep challenging them on the quality issues until you get an outcome that you are fully satisfied with. And if you're not satisfied with that, you just get a refund. It's as simple as that. I guess when we look at the cost as well, so I'm kind of like just gone 40-ish, and I've got a profession, got a decently paid job. Mrs. Leakycheese has got a decently paid job, so I'm pretty well off. A lot of financial responsibilities in terms of house, children, day-to-day costs, but a decent amount of disposable income as well. I look at some other hobbies or pursuits that you could get involved in. It's not expensive. Look at powered flight, so radio controlled aircraft, boats, helicopters. This wouldn't register as being in the same category cost wise. There are RC models that cost several thousands of pounds, and if you use those and you particularly the flying ones, and you have a mishap, a technical failure, or an act of God, shall we say, you can see thousands of pounds worth of kit get destroyed in a second or two. Do I think this is expensive? Yes. Is it excessively expensive? No. Is it something that if I decided to sell it in the future for whatever reason, I could recuperate circa 80% plus of my costs on? Yes. I thought I'd discuss that because I read a lot of commentary around the cost of this model, and I fundamentally disagree with the assertion that it's overpriced or excessively expensive. I think you need to put it in the context of where it sits in the range and the market it is aimed at. So that's my views on the cost. Interested to hear what you think about that in the comments section. Okay, and then the final part of this video, I'm going to talk about what the Warlord Titan is in terms of the buying proposition and what it's made up from. So to help us with this, I've got a prop. So at Leakycheese Towers, we've got an extensive Nerf arsenal and other, shall we say, play swords and stuff. And this is part of it, which is kind of like a foam baseball bat, which is designed for, I think, a game. It's got a ball, but it tends to get used as an improvised weapon quite a bit, along with the battery of automatic Nerf weapons, which are fantastic fun for dealing with the cheeselets. I'm going to use this for pointing as I talk through this. So I haven't got a laser pointer, I've got a foam baseball bat. So you buy the kit in parts, and let me take you through this to give you an idea of what the kit looks like when you get it. So the first thing is the actual body kit. Body kit is supplied in these two large red boxes. So if anyone's bought a Thunderhawk or a Mastodon or anything equivalent, you will normally get these in one of these boxes. The body comes in two. So that's the first thing, and that at the moment I think it's about 900 quid. The rest of the equipment is all optional, and the options are there are two arm weapons, so a left arm and a right arm, a set of carapace weapons, and a head. To complete the kit, you need a minimum of 4 additional kits to fully build it out. Now at the moment, Titan require you to have carapace weapons as well as arm weapons. Now, I wonder if at some point we might get rules for having the Warlord Titan without the carapace weapons, because back in the days of Epic, there were a whole variety of warlords that were armed with just arm weapons or a single carapace weapon. So maybe we might get that in the future. So what I bought for my weapons, this is kind of one of the things that really delayed me with this project, is when it was originally released, there were 2 weapons available, 2 weapon systems. There were Bellicosa pattern volcano cannons for the arm mounts. And then in addition, the carapace weapon mounts, there were the laser blasters. That wasn't really what I wanted for my weapon loadout. I wanted the Plasma Annihilator, the Sun Fury Plasma Annihilator for 1 arm weapon, 1 Bellicosa volcano cannon. With my carapace weapons, I wanted the multi-launchers, so like missile batteries. I didn't want the laser blasters. Part of that is game function, and part of that is aesthetics. One of the things I liked about how the Warlord was realised with the aesthetics of it, and it reminded me of what was called the Nemesis Warlord Titan back in the days of Epic. My favourite Nemesis had a pair of large arm weapons, so defence lasers as they were called. Imagine them as bellicose volcano cannons. And then on its carapace, it had a pair of multi-launchers. And it was kind of like it was the toughest, baddest firepower Titan in the game. And yeah, and it kind of stuck in my mind. And I wanted to kind of emulate the look of that with this Titan. Time of release, I bought 1 volcano cannon, and that was it. I didn't even buy the head because rumours came out very quickly that there was going to be head variants and then an exclusive head that would be available through Warhammer World. And as someone who has relatively easy access to Warhammer World, I thought, well, let's wait and see what it's going to look like. And indeed, that paid off. When it was released, I bought the Mars Beta head for the Warlords. That is a Warhammer World exclusive head, so I bought that to give my Titan a unique and distinct feel. That was part of it. I also really like the aesthetics of that head. I don't know why, I just do really like it. That's not to say the other 2 heads don't look good, because they do, they look fantastic. They all have something unique and distinct to how they look, and it is a matter of personal choice. For me, I like that head. It was easy for the logistics of acquiring one. Just over a year ago, we got the Plasma Annihilator released, which is excellent, and that's a fantastic looking weapon, so I bought one of those. At the same time, we got the Ariok Power Claw here, which was a surprise to me, and I wasn't going to buy it until I noticed that they'd given you the option to slap a Vulcan Mega Bolter on it, because in terms of battlefield usefulness, just a claw wasn't ever going to cut it, but a claw with the Mega Bolter was like, actually, yes, I can see that working. So I bought it. Got that as an alternate weapon, and I will be magnetising the weapons fit on this Titan accordingly. Then finally, we got the release of the carapace multi-launchers, or I just forget what they're called, but the missile batteries for the carapace. So I bought those. That completed my loadout. I have the carapace weapons of the multi-launchers. I have 1 Bellicosa volcano cannon, I have 1 Plasma Annihilator, and I have the Ariok Power Claw as an alternative, and then we've got the Beta Pattern head as well. And that is how I've chosen to configure my Mars Pattern Warlord Titan. I think that brings me to the end of this first video, which is quite a bit longer than I was initially anticipating. Hope you've enjoyed that little discussion. As always, I'll be very interested to hear your views, on what I've said about this kit. Tell me what you think about my reasons for choosing to buy it. What do you think about the price? Do you agree with my line of reasoning when I say this isn't expensive for what it is when you look at the overall context? Interested to hear. So just to finish, what I'll be doing with this is, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? Well, probably a couple of videos to talk about the work I've already done. So assembling, I'll probably do 2. I'll do one talking about the legs and one talking about the torso. With the one on the torso, we can actually do some build work because that's part complete at the moment. I'll share ideas around how I put this together. Lots of consideration around structural integrity and strength, because this is an enormous model. Considerable risk from breaking. So I've got a lot to talk about in terms of how I've strengthened the model, make it robust and prevent it breaking. Then I guess we can move on, and I'll do a series of videos talking about the sub-kits as well. So there's the head, the 2 arm weapons, the power claw, and then the multi-launchers. And we'll probably, my intention is to do unboxing reviews, show you those, some unusual kits there that you may not have seen. I'll certainly give you my Leakycheese view on those. and then we'll build it and it'll start to come together. See this through to its ultimate completion. So that's my idea. I'm not going to put any time frame on when I'm going to get this done. It's kind of like one of those things. What do? Do I focus on this? Do I focus on something else? I've got to say though, I've got this itch that's been developing for a while, and no, before anyone suggests it, it doesn't need any cream. But I've got this itch that's been developing to get back to this Titan, because various things have distracted me from it, and I am really enthusiastic to build this. I'm very excited by this model, and I'm kind of feeling now that I'm ready to get back into it. And as I said at the start, I'm also doubly interested in doing that because now I've got a chance to share it through the channel with all you guys and girls. I'm hoping that's something you'll enjoy. It was a pretty Titanic video for a Titanic subject. As always, please do share your thoughts in the comment section. I will look forward to hearing what you have to say on this. But apart from that, thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.